and get started. I do have a couple colleagues on with me tonight, so I might not see your questions, but they are they're trying to answer the questions as they come in. So I apologize if again if your question does not get answered right away. Okay, so Frank, you can go ahead and start the recording, and we'll get started with the class. Okay. I'm going to put on my, my webcam here as well. So everyone should be able to see on their screen the slide there. It says PSAT week reading and writing class. Hopefully it's big enough for everyone to see there, and see me as well. So we only have 45 minutes tonight, and there's a lot to cover in just these two sections of the PSAT. I want to go over some basic strategies for each section, then go through some sample questions. And we're going to run a couple polls for you guys to answer these questions. I know a bunch of people already asked, how do we participate in this? There'll be some simple polls, basically just multiple choice for you guys to answer some of these questions. But first, I'm just going to go over some strategies, and we're going to start with the writing section. Okay, so a lot of people get this section confused about what's really on the writing section. And for the PSAT, there's actually no essay. So it's going to be all multiple choice, and you're going to have you have 5 sections on the PSAT. One of them is going to be the writing section. 3 main types of questions you're going to see in the section are improving the sentence, identifying the error, improving the paragraph. I'll point out examples of those. Don't worry about what those mean. And the nice thing about the writing section is it just tests you on the same handful of rules over and over. You don't have to be an expert writer to do well on the writing section of the PSAT. All right, you just have to know the grammar rules that they test you on. And tonight we're going to go over the most common grammar rule that they test on. And you're guaranteed to see at least a few questions that test you on this rule. Okay. So the most common rule for the writing section is subject-verb agreement. The rule itself is very simple. You can see on this chalkboard here that the kid wrote "the big dog run," and when everyone reads that, I'm pretty sure everyone on here knows immediately that sentence is incorrect. Because the dog is singular and run, you would use for a plural subject. You either say the dogs run, or you'd have to say the dog runs. Okay, so that sounds pretty obvious. You're wondering why am I saying something that you guys already know. But the way the SAT and PSAT presents this error is much more disguised. So they're not going to make it this clear for you. But we're going to go through a couple techniques that will make it this easy for you. So let's look at a couple ways that the SAT will make this a little more tricky. So they use what's called prepositional phrases and unnecessary clauses. I don't like to get caught up in terminology and what things are called. I just want you guys to be able to recognize, what you're seeing. So a prepositional phrase is a phrase that includes, a preposition is a word like of, by, in, on, words like that describe relative position or location to something. So again, I don't care about, no different parts of speech are called, but just recognize those words. The most common one being of, by, in, on. Those are all really common. There's too many to list out, but just be on the lookout for those. And what's important is the subject will always come before the preposition. So, example here, when we have a phrase like the research by the scientists, a lot of people will look at this sentence and say, okay, the research by the scientists conclude that drinking coffee is correlated with higher life expectancy. Scientists conclude, when you read those two words together, that sounds fine. So you might think there's nothing wrong with the sentence, but the subject is not the scientist. Again, it's the word that comes before by. So what you can do to help yourself out is just cross out the rest of that phrase. Get rid of by the scientist. The research conclude, okay, right there, if you know something's wrong, it has to be concludes. All right, so this is the same exact mistake as the big dog run, but obviously you can see this one did not sound as obvious. Some of you might have picked up on that, just by reading it. Some of you probably not. Most people would not pick up on this right away. It's a very common technique that they use. And this sentence right here would be considered a higher level difficulty with a mistake like that. All right, other way they try to trick you is they use what's called unnecessary clauses. And this is just what it sounds like. It's a part of the sentence that you don't need for the sentence to make sense. And the way to recognize this, they're going to come between two commas like this. So it says the committee, made up of 8 members, vote on the budget this week. The same sort of thing is happening there, right? You have the word members right before vote. So that sounds okay. The members vote on the budget. That would be fine. But again, the subject is not the members. So again, you can cross out here. You can get rid of this unnecessary clause. Really, really helpful technique on the PSAT is to get rid of these clauses that come in between the two commas. As long as there's nothing underlined between there, or if there is, eliminate it as a choice. And also, for those of you who have never seen SAT writing questions, I'll show you what they look like. We do a couple examples, but they're basically underlining mistakes for you to pick out. So anyway, now we read this, and we just say the committee vote on the budget this week. Okay, so that should sound wrong. And just a note I have to make on this, a lot of people would tell me, oh, it should be the committee voted on the budget. Be very careful about changing verb tense if you don't have a reason to change it. Some sentences could be present, could be past. They don't give you context to figure it out. So the error here is not the tense. The error here is the subject-verb agreement in terms of singular versus plural. So it's a very important note because I see a ton of students make mistakes by changing tense when you don't need to. Okay, so it should be the committee votes, not necessarily the committee voted, although that would also make sense. Okay, so just a couple other notes about subject-verb agreement. We always want to check the most common verb, to be. So you're going to see that as is, are, it is, they are, past tense, was, were, or has been and have been. Those are the most common verbs that will show up. So whenever you see one of those, doesn't mean it's going to be wrong, but you need to check what the subject is. And every time you see one of those words underlined, if you check, if you just force yourself to check what the subject is, that's going to gain you a lot of points on the PSAT. So you need to get out of the habit of reading a sentence and just asking yourself, what sounds wrong to me? Because, a lot of things we hear in everyday life, whether it's, watching TV or talking with friends, you start to, the way you hear things in your everyday, speaking isn't necessarily the correct way, at least as far as the SAT is concerned. So be careful of that, and it's just a matter of really knowing the rules, and this is the biggest one to know. So if you're unsure about whether the verb should have an S on the end, just take it. If you know the subject's singular, like the dog, just replace it with it, and then say it. When I say it run or it runs, and then immediately should be it runs. Just like any plural subjects, just replace with the word they. This works especially for more subjects that have a few words in them maybe, or just longer things. You might not just be able to tell right off the bat what sounds right or wrong, so you want to replace it with simple words like it and they. It'll make it much easier on you. You'll be able to get these quicker. Okay, so let's go through some examples, give you guys a chance to try these out. So I just want to point out, again, for those of you who've never seen a question like this is what your typical SAT writing question will look like. Again, I told you there are 3 types of questions. This is one of the 3 types. You're going to see a lot of these. It underlines 4 parts of the sentence. Could be one word, could be a few words. And you would circle the answer if something is wrong with that part. Remember, something has to be wrong for you to put it. Just because you can change it doesn't mean it's your answer. So there's either one of those 4, or there you see a 5th choice, E, which unfortunately makes it a much, much more difficult question because there's that possibility there's actually nothing wrong with the sentence. So you do have to be very careful about that. So I want you guys to just take just a few seconds, read this carefully, come up with an answer. By the way, I should mention earlier, it'd be great if you have some paper, pencil handy to jot down some notes. Write down your answers to these. If not, you could pull up a Word document on your computer. So again, I'll give you guys a few seconds. I'm sure a lot of you already have the answer, and then we're gonna do a quick poll for you guys. Okay, so I think everyone had time to read it now. When I do the poll, the screen is going to disappear and you'll only be able to see the poll, so just write down your answer now, or just remember it. And just a note, I think if you're watching on an iPhone or iPad, you might not see the poll, so I do apologize. I think it only works on computers. I'm going to launch that now, so remember your answer and go ahead and put it in. All right, a lot of you guys already voted. Just if you're unsure, just put in something just so I know that you guys had a chance to vote. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Thanks for the participants. We got actually a lot of people, almost 90% voted. So, and a lot of you guys got it correct. More than well over half of you guys got this correct. So if you noticed, this was just like that example we did with the unnecessary clause, right? So I'll just go through this quickly because most of you guys did get it. We have this unnecessary clause here between 2 commas, to the dismay of opponents from other parties. So once we eliminate B as a choice, and there's nothing wrong with to the dismay of opponents, so B is fine. So I can just cross out this whole thing. And even if you were on the fence about B, let's say, at least cross out as a test to test the other choices. So then it would say the newly elected prime minister have argued. All right, then it should sound pretty clear that C is the correct answer. So good job, most of you guys did get that one. But for those of you that didn't, this was not an easy one because they did try to trick you again with the parties, plural word coming right before the verb. So if you didn't see to cross out this unnecessary clause, that'll definitely always be on the lookout for those. It'll definitely help you a lot. And again, I had a lot of people that tell me it should be the prime minister had argued, but what they're really going for is has argued. Just change from plural to singular. All right. Let's try another example. I'm going to do polls for some of these. Unfortunately, we're only allowed to do a limited number of polls, so some of them I'm just going to have to go through myself. So I want to I'll save a harder one for you guys for the next poll. This one's not too bad, so I'm just going to read it as you guys read it to yourself. There are a short but substantive list of major innovations in American education that resulted from the efforts of mathematician Winifred Merrill. So some of you guys probably read that and immediately knew something sounded wrong. Some of you guys maybe not, but remember one of the key things I said, if you see the word are, immediately ask yourself what is the subject that it's referring to. And the only reason you might find this a little difficult is that here this is a case where the subject comes after the verb, which will do once in a while to kind of try to throw you off. But that's pretty common when you're using a verb like is and are. You can certainly have the subject after the verb. So, okay, what's the subject? It's short but substantive list. Okay, we ultimately get to list. And again, you'll notice another trick they throw in here, this prepositional phrase of major innovations. We're not talking about the innovations, we're talking about the list. All right, so it should be is, and A is your answer. Okay, so again, most common verb that'll show up are forms of the verb to be. All right, let's go on to another one. This one is considerably harder, but we went over the technique, how you want to approach this. So I'll let you guys give this one a try. Again, I'll give you guys just a few seconds to read this to yourselves, and then I'm going to launch the poll. So just take a few seconds, come up with an answer, and then we'll do a poll. Okay, I think everyone had enough time there to figure out their answer. So again, launch a poll. Remember, it's going to disappear, so just remember your answer, and I'm going to go ahead and launch that now. All right, just give you guys a couple more seconds to vote here. So, actually, a lot more you guys got it than I expected. So the trick here is, again, right, these prepositional phrases, and we have two of them here. Research by several scientists and regular periods of meditation. So most of you guys actually did not fall for this trick here, and most people avoided the choice C, because when we get rid of these, we're just left with, I mean, this example is this, that's probably why a lot of you guys got this correct. It should be research suggests, right? So the answer was B. Again, good job, you guys. This was a 26. This is almost the last question of the section. So for those who are think that all this stuff has been really easy so far, this is about as hard as the writing questions get. So if you got this with no problem, that's good, very good news, and a lot of you guys did. So let's keep moving on here. All right, this is the other type of writing question. It's called improving the sentence. So I'll just go through this one quickly. The time and the place for such a large event is subject to approving from the mayor's office. Now, the goal for this type of question is you pick the best replacement. You don't need to waste your time reading choice A. Choice A is always exactly the same as what's given to you. But the thing you do want to notice, even in these types of questions, look at, when they use the word is here, especially when there's differences, when some choices use is and some use are. So here they use a compound subject, the time and the place. Again, people might, when you read it, you might quickly think that is correct because, you have the place singular there, but it's the time and the place, so it should be plural. And we do want are. So we can eliminate any choice with is, which is just choice A here. And then I'm sure some of you guys have already kind of come to your answer at this point while I was talking. So this one, you also, in this type of sentence, you also want to go for conciseness. Just, if you're in doubt, just go for the simplest way of saying something, right? The less wordy, the better. You want to follow this rule, of course, subject-verb agreement. But after that, if you're unsure between two choices, look for what is the simplest, most concise answer. So this one was C. The time and the place for such a large event are subject to the approval of the mayor's office. Okay. B says the mayor's office is approving them, extra wordy, and the word order doesn't really make sense there. All right, but I mostly just want to focus on the subject-verb agreement for now, because there are some the other main rules. Unfortunately, we don't have time tonight to get through them all. Okay. Again, we have to move quickly, not a lot of time, so we're about a little more than halfway. So I do want to get through the reading section. All right. So the reading section, you're going to have two multiple choice sections. So again, the 5 total sections are made up by 2 math, 2 reading, 1 writing. You're going to have short and long reading passages, and you're going to have sentence completions to start off each of the 2 reading sections. And the sentence completions are the ones that test you on vocabulary. So that's actually where we're gonna start tonight with the reading section. All right. And I just want to go through a handful of different types of very typical sentence completions. We're not just going to do a vocab review here, because even when you don't know all the vocabulary in a question, there are certain ways you can still eliminate choices. Okay, so just to note, now this is for the actual SAT, which most of you are probably taking the SAT after you take the PSAT. So on the SAT, you're going to total 19 of these. You have about half that on the PSAT shorter test, but it's about 30% of your reading score. So it is a very important chunk of it, not just because it makes up that 30%, but also the faster you're able to do these, the more time you have for the reading passages, which is usually the area where students have the most trouble finishing in time. All right, so easy mistake to avoid if you start planning and studying and preparing early is not knowing enough vocabulary. All right, there's plenty of lists out there. We have our own. If you have a method test prep account with the most common SAT words. So you don't need to waste time studying from a dictionary, but study the most common words, because again the SATs are very repetitive. They're going to recycle the same words over and over. So let's look at besides vocabulary, what else? What other mistakes people generally make? So you're either going to have a single blank or a double blank sentence completion, and the problem, a very common mistake I see is in these double blank questions, people tend to pick answers where that first word just seems to work perfectly, and in fact, the SAT will probably make it so that one of the words in the wrong choice will seem to work better than than the word in the right choice. It's just that other word doesn't work, and sometimes you're be very careful. Before you look at the answer choice, in your head for both blanks, and then match both up with the answer choices, and you can always eliminate based on one word. One word does not work, you can eliminate that choice. You don't even have to know both of the words. So let's look at an example. I'll put this up for a poll. So I'll give you guys a chance to read this to yourselves, and then we'll put it up for a poll. Okay, so let's go ahead and launch a poll for this. Again, remember your answer, and I'm going to put that up now. All right, and again, if you didn't know, just put in a guess, guys. I just want to give everyone a chance to at least put in an answer. All right, let's close that now. We got most of you did put an answer. I'm actually going to put share these results so you guys can see how everyone else voted. So C was the most popular answer, but not by a whole lot. Certainly less than the majority. So this one was the more difficult one, and let's see if C was the right answer. Because there are good-looking answer choices here. So we have to see what the problem is with this. One other thing I want you to notice about this sentence is look at it. It says, just as glass windows offer both light and insulation. We need the second part of that sentence to, these sentences are always going to be parallel in terms of the order that they say things. So the first blank is going to have to do with offering light. All right, the first blank. So what would it do to incoming sunlight if it's offering light? You know, my word or words of choice would just be to let in. By the way, the simpler you make the words that you're picking, the better, especially like using words that are mentioned in a sentence, if that's possible. Sometimes it defines a word for you. Okay, and then the second blank has to do with insulation. So what do you get, if you're offering insulation, what are you doing with heat radiated from the ground? You're keeping it in, right? So I put to keep in. Let me actually type in that one. So to keep in heat. And all right, so now I just need to match up here. And this one's going to be much easier on me if I actually eliminate based on what doesn't work. So a couple things that jump out at me. Choice E, which was a pretty common choice because of the word trap, but resist is the opposite of what I want, so that doesn't mean to let it. The problem with D, I think that was the second most popular choice, is dispense. Okay, absorb was that word I was talking about. Absorb works perfectly in that first blank. Dispense is the opposite of what I want. It does not mean to insulate. So that's out. B, deflect. Everyone should be able to eliminate that. And then A, repeat. That doesn't work. So we're left with admit and contain. And again, you know, a lot of people didn't get largely because absorb just seems to work better than admit. But admit, it doesn't mean to let in, you know, just like you're admitted to college, things, you know, just in general means to let in. And then, of course, contain would mean to keep in, to insulate, okay? So be very, very careful about that one word that seems to fit perfectly, because that doesn't, if you can't see why the second word fits, that means nothing. So especially as these get harder, focus more on eliminating rather than just looking for the one word that fits perfectly. All right, so on to another common mistake. People have a natural tendency to avoid choices that have words they don't know. Okay, you know, when I ask students why they pick certain choices, a lot of times in the harder questions they just say because I recognize it. That's the only word I recognize. They just pick it because they recognize it. Words that if you do recognize words in a choice, you know, if they're the wrong ones, you should be able to eliminate them if you do know them. So if you're able to eliminate all those unfamiliar words, or sorry, all the familiar words, then you might be able to pick an unfamiliar word with 100% certainty. So let's look at a particular question where students, make that mistake. All right, so again, I'll give you guys another little bit to try this one. Just read it to yourselves, pick an answer, and then I'll launch a poll for this one. Okay, hopefully everyone has an answer, so let's go ahead and do the poll. Okay, I think everyone had a chance to vote here, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. So this one you guys are a little better on. Either you knew the word and the correct answer, or you were heeding those words of advice. Sorry, did I? Yeah, okay, close it. So the correct answer here was C, distension. So good job to those who got it. About half of you guys got it right. And let's look at what kind of word we were looking for here. Foamy viruses cause cells cultured in laboratories to swell, but produce no such blank. All right, when I see words like no such or this or that, it's generally referring to something just mentioned in the sentence. So here it's referring to swelling. So again, I like to use words that are already mentioned in the sentence. So I'm just going to use swelling, and I need to find a word that means exactly that. So I think the next most common choice was B, disintegration, because a lot of you probably were able to eliminate things like dehydration, deflation, and compression. Sometimes you get stuck between B and C, a word that you know and a word that you might not know. Distension is generally the word out of here that would be the least likely for you to know. But disintegration doesn't really mean swelling, right? You'd really have to stretch the definition to say something that's swelling is disintegrating. So disintegrating to fall apart, swelling to expand. So distension does mean swelling, and some of you also might maybe figure it out based on roots, which is another really helpful strategy on this portion of the SAT is look for word roots, right? You might not know distension, but you probably know the word tension, right? Really tight. So distension, dis is a negative prefix, so the opposite of something that's pulled tight would be something that's swelling. Okay, so word roots can be very, very helpful all throughout this section. All right, I'm going to move a little quicker here. So another mistake, don't word associate. You see certain words you might that would seem to go together in your head, or you've seen them together in classes. All the information that you need to get one of these questions has to be given to you in a sentence. You never bring in outside knowledge about history, about people. All the information will be given to you in a sentence. So let me just go through this one quickly, and I'll let you guys try the next one on your own. The word association that people sometimes make here is that orangutans, they might see the word indigenous and say, oh yeah, I've seen indigenous refer to like different species, different animals, so that sounds good here, they're indigenous apes, without even really reading the rest of it, because this word can mean anything before we get to the second half of the sentence. It can be large apes, it can be friendly apes. We have to look at exactly what's told to us. So they typically conduct most of their lives up in the trees. of tropical rainforest. So I need something that means an animal that lives in trees, very specific. These are some pretty tough words, but you might recognize the root here, arbor. Also, if you take Spanish or some other foreign languages, the word for tree is actually very similar to this. In Spanish, it's arbol. A couple other languages have similar roots here. So sometimes foreign languages can actually help you get some of these. But arbor, there's Arbor Day. You might have heard of, or an arboretum. Anything with that arbor root is tree related. So arboreal is tree related. So that's the correct answer here. All right, just again another one you could figure out by the root here. If you didn't know transitory, you see transit, right? Something that probably involves moving. So this would be if they're moving around quickly from place to place. So this one was choice C. All right, so let's go to, this is going to be the hardest one yet for those of you who felt you have not been challenged at all. This is a very challenging one. And then see a bunch of words you don't know. And I'll show you why. You don't have to know, even if you only know a couple words here, you can still have a very good chance of getting this one correct. So I'll leave it up to you guys to give a crack at it, and take a few seconds, read it, and then we'll put it up for a poll. Okay, I know some of you might not have a chance to think this through all the way, but I do want to get up for a poll. So if you're between a couple choices, just put in your best guess, and let's go ahead and launch the poll. Okay, now let's close it out. I think everyone had a chance to vote here. All right, so I told you guys that this one would be a little challenging, and I think you guys, at least I'm sure a lot of you guys, or some of you guys got without much of a problem, but this did prove to be a little difficult. And I'll show you guys what everyone else put here. See, 47% choice B, almost a majority for choice B. B was actually not the correct answer. So let's see how I can eliminate some choices here. Because if I look at this, for a lot of things, probably the first reaction to just leave this one blank. There's a lot of very difficult words here. But let's at least see if we can eliminate some choices. So some interactive computer games are so elaborately contrived and require such blank strategies. All right, elaborately contrived. So what kind of strategies would they require? Probably such I'm going to say complex. Sure, it's difficult. There's plenty of other words that would work there. And then that only the most blank player can master them. All right, now I'm going to say skillful here, but important part is just a positive word there. There's a lot of other positives that you can put in there. So I'm going to show you that if a word to you sounds negative, that might be good enough to eliminate it. First of all, choice E should be predict. If you know any of these 10 words on here, it's probably predictable, and that definitely doesn't work in the first place, so we can get rid of that. Look at C and D, lackadaisical and slipshod. If you've never heard those words before in your life, you probably make a pretty good guess that those are pretty negative sounding. Probably don't mean skillful, so I'm going to get rid of those. Now between A and B, this is the tough part, and you guys figured out, I told you B wasn't the right answer, so it must be A. And again, I think it might be because B, conscientious is a word that you're probably just more comfortable with than A. You might not have known either of those words. conscientious would make sense. You know, you're someone who's very aware of your surroundings. So that would seem to make sense there. But nefarious is the problem with B. Nefarious means very evil or wicked, very bad thing. So that's the problem with B. A, adroit, really good SAT word. If you didn't know that one, jot it down. Adroit is skillful. All right. Byzantine, don't worry about it too much. It's not a very common word, but it does mean something that's very complex. All right. So that was the hardest one. So if you got that one, awesome. You're in very good shape for this section of PSAT. If you didn't get this one, obviously do not worry about it. Most people, vast majority of people, get this one wrong. I just want to show you that you shouldn't just give up just because you see some hard words, right? All right, now I know we only have a couple minutes left, so just really quickly, I just want to go over some general passage strategies. Obviously, we don't have enough time to go through a passage, but just some quick overall strategies for SAT and PSAT reading passages. All right. Most common mistake people make on these passages is reading for too much detail and trying to understand everything. Okay, you do not need to understand every part of a passage. You need to get the main idea. You're not writing a book report. You're going to be asked very main idea oriented questions. Okay, so look at things that are repeated throughout the passage, things that are talked about in different ways, and also think about why the author is writing this. Okay, so you're going to see a lot of answer choices where it's basically paraphrasing of stuff in the passage. So you see an example up there, a possible correct answer there, and the answers need to come from the passage. Again, another section you do not want to bring outside information in. Right? All the answers have to come directly from the passage. Some will be a little harder, not as clear as others, but they will always be there or be strongly implied by the passage. When you see line numbers, okay, the SAT writers know that generally a lot of people are just going to look at these questions, not even read the passage, and then just go to line numbers that it says. So it's not going to make them that obvious in those line numbers. You need to read around line numbers. So you first need to read the passage quickly as much as you can. Don't spend more than about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes tops reading. Then go to the questions. But you still will need to go back. When it references the line numbers, go above, go below, try to find your answer in that range. You'll sometimes get a big hint above or below. General types of choices to avoid. Things that are too broad. The passage is, if the passage is more specific, avoid answers that are too broad, or of course too specific. All right, it could be something that's mentioned in the passage, but if it's just one minor detail, it's not going to be an answer to the question. So always just ask yourself, does the passage support my answer? And is my answer consistent with the main idea? Even when it references one line out of the entire passage, it's usually going to be a main idea or at least a main idea of that paragraph within the passage. Okay. Just like in the sentence completions, they often will try to trap you with word association, so just avoid that. I know that was really quick, but general strategies, again, if you just keep those things in mind, I think you will. Ultimately, you just need a couple of times, practice sections. We recommend the official SAT study guide, big blue book. I'm sure a lot of you guys already have it. And so, all right, it's already passed. Just really quickly, a couple things that for you guys to keep in mind. If you found this webinar helpful, there's another one I'm sure most of you are aware. Tomorrow night, math class. I'll go over the math strategies for the PSAT. If you're looking for something that's a little more in depth, I think we mentioned we put these links in the chat box. We do have a couple full-length classes, so again, it won't be as quick and as tonight. It'll be more in-depth coverage of all this stuff, and also, the class will be a lot smaller, so you guys would be able to participate with your microphone and type in questions and show how you would go over them. So more intimate setting. So there is a class, 10-hour class total. It starts this Wednesday. You can go to the online class website for that. And something else that a lot of students find really helpful, we have some classes that have already been recorded. For example, if you're scoring in like the 60s or aiming to get 60s or above on the PSAT math section, probably find it more worth your while to do just the advanced math class recording. Tomorrow night's going to go over some of the basic math strategies. It'll be useful for everyone, but if you're looking for that higher level math, we do have a specific class just to prepare you for the hardest types of questions. And those are 90 minutes, so again, it'll be double the length of this one tonight. Okay, and I think that is everything I had. So again, thanks everyone for joining. There were, I know, a lot of questions, a lot of really good questions. I apologize if you did not get all your questions answered. If you have any pressing questions, I'm gonna also type in our email again. It's just tutoring@methodtestprep.com. So just put that in. Okay, so email us with questions in the future. You need extra help with anything.
Hey, Elliot.
Yeah.
It's Frank. A lot of people are typing in some general questions about the PSAT, how it's scored, what's a good PSAT score. All of those answers can be found in our parent webinar that we did. Would you mind just going to the Method Test Prep PSAT page and showing everybody where they can access the recording to that?
Sure. So yeah, to get the recording of the other webinar we held, that would be under on our main page. You'll see this bar at the top. So Prep Resources. Is this the right place, right? Prep Resources.
Actually, go to PSAT. Yeah, PSAT week.
Sorry. So you can go to methodtestprep.com /PSAT week. That'll bring you right here. And then you're going to see it's actually this parent webinar, but it has all the general answers for the PSAT. So you just click that, click to watch a recording of the webinar. It has been pointed out to us that there is perhaps a video issue if you're trying to watch it on a Mac, but you should still be able to at least hear the audio even on Macs, and you can still follow along even with just the audio. But that'll have all the answers to general PSAT, how it's scored. Obviously, there's, it would take a lot of time to go through all that again. So check out that recording. A lot of good information on there.
Thanks, Elliot. Great job tonight. Everybody, the next webinar that starts in 10 minutes is the same material, so you're more than welcome to attend again. However, we will also be sending out a recording to this webinar. It should hit your inbox, your email inbox, within the next couple of hours. So thanks for being on tonight. Elliot, you going to be all right if I close it now?